Marbury Education, AS Sociology, Unit 2, Education, Interpretivism. Interpretivism is a micro or small-scale approach to sociology. Interpretivists also reject the usefulness of scientific methods and seek to understand the meanings and motivations behind behavior in humanistic ways. So interpretivists don't really see society as a thing to be measured or quantified, but something which we construct in our heads on a daily basis. Charles Cooley, 1902, spoke about the looking glass self, where we build our own identity through seeing how others perceive and react to us. So we learn to see ourselves as others do. This is important for education, because if we have negative reactions from others because of the way we dress, the way we speak, or because of our educational performance, this will shape our personal identity. This leads us on to the issue of labelling, which interpretivists see as largely being responsible for our success or failure in education. One of the most well-known of these studies on labelling was carried out by Howard Becker in 1971. He interviewed 60 teachers from Chicago, and they were said to judge students based on how they compared to particular ideal traits. Good academic work, conformist behaviour, and a conservative appearance were more likely to be found amongst middle-class students. As such, middle-class students were positively labelled and developed a positive self-identity, and the opposite was true for working-class students. Another interpretivist study which focused on labelling was by Ray Rist in 1970. He found that in an early years school, what Americans call kindergarten or grade school, the teacher sat children on different tables according to their home background and appearance. The tigers were sat nearest the teacher and were given most attention and encouragement, whilst the clowns and the cardinals were sat furthest away and were given simpler tasks to do, like reading as a group, not individually. Rosenthal and Jacobson, 1968, conducted a field experiment to test labelling theory by deceiving teachers through telling them that certain students had been identified as destined for high academic success after the implementation of an IQ test. Upon their return to the school some months later, they found that those students who had been randomly identified had made more progress than those not positively identified. They concluded that the teachers had positively labelled these intellectual bloomers and had encouraged and stretched them more. This early labelling has been seen by interactionists as unfair and potentially damaging to those labelled negatively. However, the labelling process is not a simple one. For example, Becker and Rist suppose that a student notices the label, that they then accept the label, and then that having internalized the label, they then live out the prophecy. One might accept the label, and this could affect the child's educational attainment. But they might not notice it, or might interpret the label given in a way not intended. For example, if a teacher's attention is constantly drawn to one student because of their behaviour, the student might think that they are a valued member of the class, because they receive most of the teacher's time and attention. Some students might have a negotiated reaction, where they accept some parts of the label but reject other parts of it. Furthermore, students have agency or self-determination and may reject the label given by the teacher. In that case, the student might be given a negative label, but they reject it and seek to prove the teacher wrong about their ability and chances of success. Also, teachers may not be seen as significant others. A significant other is someone whose opinion you really care about. In this case then, students who might be labelled either positively or negatively may not care about being labelled. So perhaps labelling is a useful window into what goes on in the classroom and how teachers may stereotype individuals according to their class or ethnic origin, and how this might affect their self-identity and their chances of educational success. But it can't offer the whole story, because there are clearly a number of weaknesses with the theory. However, we shouldn't be surprised that labelling goes on, because we inhabit an educational system which, according to Hattersley and Francis, 2004, labels schools as good or bad. So management, teaching, policies and systems in a school are judged as outstanding, good, satisfactory or inadequate. So those in authority feel it is appropriate to label a whole school as inadequate when both teachers and students might be demotivated by it. Finally then, some examples of positive or negative labelling might include the following. Number 1. Indian females as hard-working and intelligent. Number 2. Working class white males as unacademic and fatalistic. Number 3. Afro-Caribbean males as discipline problems. And number 4. Those from a Chinese background as intelligent and hard-working. Whether such labels make any difference to the long-term educational performance remains open to debate.